China gehörte letztes Jahr wohl zu den meist behafteten Aktienmärkten der Welt. Doch zu Recht? In den Medien lesen wir oder hören von Immobilienkrise, einem möglichen Taiwan-Angriff und vielen anderen Problemen. Doch Fakt ist, dass die chinesische Wirtschaft um 5,2% gewachsen ist. Wie passt das denn zusammen? Vor allem, wie sieht es tatsächlich bei den Unternehmen im Detail aus? Wieder ein Grund, sich mit dem chinesischen Aktienmarkt zu beschäftigen. Wir haben dazu im Interview Steven Luk, CEO von FountainCap, eine Investmentboutique aus Hongkong, die sich ausschließlich mit chinesischen Aktien beschäftigt. Jason, in the last quarter of 2023, stocks in China fell significantly again. The start of the year initially went like the end of the last year, and in the last few weeks, the stock market has recovered. We haven't seen any real bad news. What's going on in the stock market?
Yeah, so this is something that I think, so you really have to look at this in two chunks. I think starting in Q3 last year, there has been a significant redemption pressure from foreign investors that were just pulling out of China. Then once you head towards into Q3 and beginning of Q4, it's what I call capitulation. I think people just had it. They don't want to even look at China at that point, and they were just saying, it's already maybe less than 3% of my portfolio anyway. Why bother? And that's when also the time when you see emerging market ex-China products exploding in inflows. So there's a significant amount of rebalancing away from the China equity market into sort of these emerging market ex-China portfolios. Hence, just massive sell-off in Q3 and Q4 of last year. The past few weeks is a little bit more interesting. I don't think it's much driven by flows. I think the bulk of investors that needed to redeem have already done so. The rest that are in the market, I don't think they're gonna recognize their losses, so to speak, right now, and they're gonna likely stay invested. So who are trading in the market today? If you look at the investor base, and this is from data that we get from our brokers and various reports on the ground too, retail investors have also sit on the sidelines. In fact, my family, especially my parents, my in-laws, they are quite active as stock speculators, and they haven't touched the Hong Kong market for almost 4 months now. To them, it's just it's going to lose money anyway. Why bother investing? And this is quite significant of an impact, because if even retail investors sit on the sidelines, then liquidity goes down, which means volatility will be exacerbated. In fact, you look at the transaction volume on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, hovered at historical lows, just a little bit over maybe $300-400 billion a day of turnover, which is maybe just less than 1/3 of the historical average. So the action that you see in the market over the past few weeks, very much driven by lack of participation from both institutional and retail investors, and it's really mostly driven by traders. In my opinion, right now is really more of a trading market. You have traders that want to take advantage of little bit of news to pop in or out, and they will either quickly go in and then close the position once they are up a few bips. And that's essentially what I think has happened throughout the month of January. Over the past few weeks, I think the market rally isn't, again, so much driven by flows coming back in, but from the central government essentially stepping in to prop up the market. The sovereign wealth funds in China continues to invest in the stock market, continues to buy the ETF in the stock market as a way to set a floor, so to speak. So I don't think the action that we have seen over the past few weeks, from like a sharp drop to now a fairly significant rebound, is driven mainly by flows coming back into the market, but really just volatility triggered by low transaction volume. Whereas the past few weeks are driven by just the government coming back in, really trying to send a strong signal: don't bet against the CCP, so to speak.
You recently took a trip deep into China, I think last or in January. What are the key results that you seen there?
Oh, Thomas, that's a great question, because it was a surprise, positive surprise for us and also for our client. One of our clients actually traveled with us. It's a significant UK-based pension fund, and I'll first tell you what we did. Unlike many of our peers, we, instead of taking allocators to go see companies, which is good, but I think it's better to show them the real China story. We took them to see local hospitals to understand what equipment, for example, hospitals are now using. We took them to local malls to just get a pulse check of consumption activities. We arranged dinners with local government officials to understand what the policy stance are, to understand the dynamic, that are sort of between local government, provincial government, and the central government. We had dinner with local real estate developers to understand just how bad things really are. And the findings are very, very positive, and surprisingly so. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's look at consumption first, because that's a big topic. Everyone talks about how consumption in China is slowing down. The mall that we visited is located in a tier 2.5, 2.5 city in a province that is known to generate the most coal. So it's a very kind of traditional province, less developed than the Shanghai and Beijing that everyone knows about. In this one mall, when we were there, it was completely packed with people. And I'm not just talking about pedestrians walking around, people literally holding bags that they have purchased. One of the stores that we visited just opened for about 8 days when we visited, and already generated 3 million RMB in sales. And that one store is on track to generate 100 million RMB in sales, with an average ticket sale price of about 6,000 RMB. So you can see that people are still very much willing to spend if, of course, the brand provides a little bit more a newer experience, so to speak. And that is something that I think has often been overlooked. I think everyone focuses on the economic slowing down and how that affects consumption. While true, equally important is also this change in behavior of consumers because of COVID. I think since the lockdown, many consumers reevaluated what they believe are worthy, what they think are valuable. And that shift in preferences now are more geared towards niche products, experiential products. Hence why, if you look at tourism, it's also booming. You look at all these cultural sites are also booming. Consumption behaviors are also shifting. So if you want to benefit from this consumption story, which we believe is still very much intact, companies have to do much more than just kind of rely on the old cookie cutter type of strategies. Another example I can give you, hospitals is another very interesting find that we saw, and it's something I recently wrote about, which is, you look at the what they are procuring are essentially a mix of foreign branded equipments and domestic Chinese branded equipments. But then the separation there is for surgical tools, still very much foreign dominated, and that's a good reason for that, because doctors, from what we found out, were essentially trained in the medical school to use foreign branded tools. For domestic branded equipment, it's mostly used for the non-invasive procedures, so the MRI, the CT scan, the blood testing, and so forth, and they provide better quality, easier use of UI, user interface, and significantly cheaper. And that has really good implication in terms of investment, especially for us, as we continue to build upon our portfolio exposure in this. Maybe just a quick tidbit on this last point on this trip. The one of the discovery that we found on talking to one of the local government official. So, for example, you read about how iPhones are essentially being banned in China, especially for government officials. That's not true. In fact, I was told the local city police force, the new bulk order for phones are iPhones. And because they actually find iPhones to be a lot safer than any other phones on the market. So from a security perspective, they actually prefer that. Tesla, on the other hand, is indeed discouraged. And in fact, no Teslas are allowed to be driven anywhere near the government sites. So, a takeaway from that is you can't really trust and believe everything that you read in the media. Sometimes they get the stories wrong as well.
You're direct in contact with the companies. Is the situation of the companies really as bad as the share prices?
So, I don't want to, only talk about the good stuff. Now, I think with this question, the way I want to approach it is twofold. If you look at the fundamentals of the businesses, absolutely better than what the price suggests. However, if you speak with the founders or senior management, I think, at least in private, the sentiment is much worse. But then of course this diverges among different industries. So, for example, within the internet space, and we have a number of large internet entrepreneurs that are also investors of ours that we speak with. And if you talk to them in private, they honestly feel quite hopeless because of all the crackdown that they have faced, because they feel like the whole environment has shifted. It's no longer innovation driven. In fact, I one of my good friends joined Alibaba in 2022, and she left within 9 months. And the reason is because she joined as a sort of almost like a product specialist to help innovate, to come up with new ideas and new products. But the entire 9 months that she was there, she spent a lot of time just preparing reports for basically government officials, which changes how a lot of these companies work going forward. So if you talk to these founders and entrepreneurs and these senior executives, I think they, at least within the internet industry, I think they are quite pessimistic, so to speak. But their businesses fundamentally are still very strong. There's you're not going to see any replacement for someone like Tencent, as an example, or a company like NetEase is still doing really well as a business. But the founder sentiment isn't so good. Now, interestingly, you cross that bridge to more traditional industries like industrials. That's when you see a lot more alignment between business growth as well as the senior executives and founder sentiment, where they are still very bullish. They feel like this is finally their time to shine, and things are looking up. What they are confused about is why is their stock price not corresponding to this improvement of fundamentals that they see, that we see, and honestly, they always ask us to what's happening? Why isn't our share price going up? And we have that kind of conversations too. So in short, fundamentally, I think a lot of businesses are nowhere near as bad as what the price suggests. And then sentiment, however, I think diverges depending on the industry that you speak with. Some are quite pessimistic, some are very optimistic, and then the rest are kind of in between.
When we look at the share prices, the profits must fall down significantly, especially in the small caps. I think last year. Is there any truth to it in this market? Do you have
Yeah.
some examples for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I first I want to address this idea of the small cap. I think broadly speaking, across industries, this phenomenon took place where not only for small cap but mid cap, large cap, mega cap, fundamentally better today than even pre-COVID, but share prices collapsed. I think that's just more of a byproduct of like what I talked about in the beginning, basically investors throwing in the towel, capitulating, and just giving up on China and just continue to unwind their positions. Small cap feels the most of this, obviously given the smaller size, the less liquidity, and just the fact that they're small cap also means their business profile may not be as strong. So they are when the economy has a significant downturn, if they're not careful, they can go out of business. So that's a lot of risk factor into their prices here too. Hence why small caps collapsed even more than most other businesses. But like I said, it's a phenomenon across industries, and there are actually two examples that I can show you. The number one example, which if you look at the chart of Anta Sports, for example, the share price has come down over the past few years. But if you look at the business itself, revenue basically doubled, net income almost doubled, free cash flow also more than doubled. So, and on top of that, the stores that we have seen, that we have been to, their stores in various parts of China, are packed with people, consumers, and this is in midst of a overall consumption slowdown in China. So like I said, it's definitely not the share price is not indicative of the business fundamentals, and to us, that's music to my ears, because that just means it's a very good time to essentially invest more in companies like these. Another example is mine rate, which if you look at the chart as well, hasn't really done anything, and it's just gradually trickled down. But again, this is a healthcare equipment business that is just continuing to not only expand in China but overseas, in Southeast Asia, in Europe. That sees its revenue doubling, net income also more than doubling, and again, free cash flow also almost doubling. So again, fundamentally, these businesses are doing better today than pre-COVID, but because of the overall sentiment is quite bad in China, they're just not being properly rewarded. But if you have a slightly longer term view, this could present an excellent opportunity to build a position.
Let's move to your strategy. What is your current focus, or the focus for the next years?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier on, and so there are a couple of mega trends that we still believe are intact in China. Consumption being one of them. Despite all the headlines, if you look at our portfolio, we're still overweight consumer sectors, simply because we believe the pockets of growth are there are still many pockets of growth, and the companies that survive are stronger today than ever before. In areas like tourism, there are a number of opportunities that we are now keep building up within our portfolio. Within the consumer space, some discretionary items like sportswear growing at double digits as an industry, and there's no slowing down of this, especially given how interestingly, when the government limits people's time on games, as we have read about these rules, what do they do then? It basically forces people to do more sports, essentially. So you definitely see younger generation now more active than before. Medical equipment, it's an area I think China is significantly underinvested. To give an example, China has 4 times the population of the United States, but it only has 1/3 of ICU beds when compared to the US. So that doesn't make any sense. How could a country have 4 times the population but less than 1/3 of beds in hospitals? So especially now, you couple with aging demographics, you couple with post-COVID, people are just a lot more health and well-being conscious. That's going to be a significant need to invest more on healthcare infrastructure. Preventative care is an area that we are quite excited about, and hence why we continue to build up our exposure within that space via medical equipment. Same thing for industrials also, traditional manufacturers that are perhaps more not on the advanced end. I think the advanced sort of the technology, semiconductor area, that's going to continue to be subjected to geopolitical issues. But something just a little bit more out of the way, a little bit more component driven, like a air conditioning thermal regulator unit, or a refrigerator thermal regulator unit. These component players, not only are they already have a number one position, at least the company that we're invested in have a number one position in China, they have a number one position globally. So for companies like these, we continue to hold and own because that we just don't see any replacement in the near term.
So Steven, thank you very much for your time and for the detailed insight into China.
Thank you, Thomas, for this opportunity. And it's a very tough time. I understand, but I do think for at least this is how I've been advising our clients to, if they are looking to do anything in China over the next few years, now is probably a good time to take a look. But if anything, just stay invested because everything is pointing towards to a recovery in China.
So good news for the future in China.
Indeed.
Okay, Steven, thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you, Thomas. Bye-bye.
Liebe Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer, vielen Dank, dass Sie sich das Video angeschaut haben. Wenn Sie auf den Laufenden gehalten werden möchten, einfach den H1 Akademie-Kanal abonnieren. Wenn Ihnen das Video gefallen hat, über einen Daumen hoch würde ich mich freuen. Bis bald in einem der kommenden Videos. Ihr Thomas Polach. Tschüss.